Hey there, welcome to episode 88 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at moments before noon on Friday, the 1st of November, 2024. Today we're going to speak about smart city resources. What does that even mean? What is a smart city? Well, we'll talk about it. This is not a comprehensive discussion of any kind in this area. It's just some things to think about. As I mentioned in the show notes, which I will read the summary from. Before we get started, I will remind you if you are returning, or I will tell you if this is your first time listening. Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program was conceived and was conceived to talk about, and it continues to be about, does that make sense? The entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, entrepreneurs and innovators hanging out together. The entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem of the greater Vegas area. What does it do? What does it need? How's it going? Who is making the most of it? Who is making it happen? Could be anything. Today, we will. Normally, I would love to have guests on that are doing those sorts of things. Booking guests is on my New Year's resolution for 2025 or before. Part of the challenge, to be quite honest, is getting people to be aware of a program like this so that they will, let's be honest, how many listeners do you have? So that it will be worth their time. And so one of the challenges to get over that, one of the challenges to get over, and my pursuit getting over that, is to make it easier to discover all content creator projects, content in general. Content is a horrible word, but it's the one we have. So being able to locate local, I don't know if somebody does this. I don't know if there's a podcast directory out there that's based on location. You can search for the word Las Vegas, but it'd be nice if they were geotagged, as we call it. So you could actually put a pin in a map and say, this episode is about this place, or it originates from this place, etc. So all kinds of ideas floating around. I'm a software engineer myself, so I've written software that does these sorts of things. So that's sort of on the table. I have talked about the MyMuni and Welcome projects or initiatives that we're working on with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, of which I am the managing director. And those will be the open source basis of the projects that we'll deploy here, that eventually becomes volunteers getting paid for their efforts. Continuing engineering, yay. And not everything's code, by the way, so it's not necessarily engineering. Okay, all that said, Smart City Resources. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description. Within, you will find the show notes, the summary, which I will read, and the links for today's episode. There's a small number. It's not too many. The 2 shameless self-promotion links for myself, 4 topical links for the episode. So let's get started. The summary. Thinking out loud about what a smart city is or could be, and how the greater Vegas area, which already is not one city, could perhaps set an example as a smarter smart city, not only for our locals, but for our many, many visitors each year. Allegedly 40 million people per year is our current run rate, but I'm hearing the run rate maybe down a bit, so probably want to investigate that towards the end of the calendar year. It'll be interesting to see what impact the Formula One race has, which is coming up in about 3 weeks, I think it is, and whether the year-over-year comparison of the event itself, so I don't think it's not the same week. I think it's 1 week later this year, but clearly the event itself. So what is attendance like this year versus last year? What is the general, as the end of year approaches, what's the tourism rate? Of course, the LVCVA, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, publishes, I believe it's the study section, research. I think it's the research tab, one of those. We'll talk about that more, and I have talked about it several times in the past. The number of people who visit Las Vegas is not small, and if you're building something or making something or trying to come up with something, and you can somehow engage a fairly diverse cross-section of humanity as it passes through Vegas, if you can engage people, survey, get their feedback, co-create sometimes, that is part of a value proposition to doing something entrepreneurial and or innovative here in Vegas. So the traffic of visitors through the ecosystem is a part of the ecosystem, perhaps. It depends on what you do with that. So yeah, many visitors, but we'll figure out how many. Maybe after F1. Last year I think I did a 3-part series, long before, right before, and then after Formula One. I called it the F1 Fun Economy. So I spelled it F1UN. That is somewhat cynical, but not far off. So yeah, we should talk about the fun economy and visitor flux through the Greater Vegas area. And by the way, Greater Vegas is not a city; it's more of a county. The Clark County Commission has broached the topic, the notion that maybe renaming Clark County to Vegas County or Las Vegas County would make more sense. This is certainly not a new idea in general. I lived in Santa Clara County, San Bernardino County. These are in California. There are many examples where a county is named in alignment with, in some way, either directly or close to a city name. So that would be interesting. Most people are confused when they come to Las Vegas. They are not in Las Vegas. What does that mean? So that would quell some of that, sort of. Although it would change the way different laws are applied to different geographical parts of the Greater Vegas area. But either way, making the Greater Vegas area a smart city, you have to enable some dramatic license. The links for today's episode, the first 2 are the shameless self-promotion links that you always hear about, so you probably know them already. Say it with me, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo, DANHUGO, no spaces, and Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo, no spaces. Use these to reach out to and engage with people who enjoy or have just discovered my various projects and media productions. You are not obligated in any way to spend to spend any money on either of these platforms. The Buy Me a Coffee platform does enable a free-form profile page on which I've pasted many links to my various undertakings, and there might be at least one more, but possibly 2 more audio programs entering the mix. There might be 3 more, really, when you think about it, because who needs to sleep? But this will the 2 of them are aligned with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, of which I'm the managing director. And did I say that at the beginning of the show? I'm not the managing director of Cafe Genius Impresarios, but I should be. I'm just somebody hanging out. But the Innovate for Vegas Foundation already has an audio program called Let's Innovate for Vegas, and it might get 2 more that will be less frequent and focused on 2 particular initiatives that we're doing. So you can find out more about those by, first of all, bookmark or visit the Buy Me a Coffee site. The Ko-fi site, I think I have kind of settled on how I want to use that platform. I've been kind of letting that one languish a little bit, but I talk about it all the time just in case people feel like they need some repetition repeating itself. So Ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo, Ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. Anyway, visit either of those, find out about what's going on with my content creation life. Content creation, that's the only cool thing to do anymore. I have a Smart City Wikipedia link. I have 3 Wikipedia links, actually. Smart City, and this is really just what is a smart city. You, as I will say later, you can find many what is a smart city search results. So as I always say with Wikipedia, great place to start, rarely the best place to end if you're looking for information. But it does a reasonable job at the beginning of the article. Here's the state of affairs with what a smart city is, what people think it is today or recently. And then there are 3 examples cited from, I believe it's 2011, which I will mention briefly, but and some other details and whatnot. So, smart city. The Sidewalk Toronto project, I have linked to the Wikipedia page. You can certainly find other articles, not all of them safe for work. It's a bit of an adventure in mismatching, interacting with people in a city. Sidewalk Toronto. So check that out if you're curious. It's something that I've thought about and I've talked about when I have mentioned the notion of Vegas being a smart city. Like, be careful how you implement such things. Raymond Loewy. If you don't know who Raymond Loewy is, you probably do, but you just didn't know it. Raymond Loewy is a infamous designer. There's a really good book. I think it's called like Sticky Marketing or something. Somebody from The Atlantic wrote a book about him and did a TED Talk. And I've talked about this previously. I like the idea, the Maya idea, which I'll mention later, and the familiar surprise notion is something I use all the time because it's pretty much true. That's what skeuomorphism is. A desktop interface that looks like a desktop. So it looks familiar, but then, ooh, surprise, it does something more. And a stolen generator example, which I'll talk about more. So it's an Instagram post to an Instagram, it's an Instagram link to an Instagram post. You should be able to see it because Instagram has broken the internet as far as how it functions and whatnot. You should be able to see the first image, the one image, but you may not be able to see more unless you log in or something stupid like that. So we'll talk about that. So let us begin. First, I'm going to get some water. The weather has changed in Vegas. I usually point that out. Something like 64 degrees at noon in Vegas. I don't know if that's right. That might be a little low. Or maybe not. I'll go outside shortly and find out. What is a smart city? One might search for this in the internets, and there will be many, many results. And I do mean many. While I was working with Intel, a chip company, the one that might go out of business any day now, I used to ask people, especially when I was traveling around to different places. At the time, Intel was really focusing on IoT, Internet of Things, and they did have some smart city leaning initiatives, both from the chips and technologies perspective, and I think chips and technologies was actually a company, but so from development of hardware to actual solutions development, they were talking about capturing environmental information like sensor arrays and then the data capture and analysis. So it would be a kind of a solution. Anyway, they were doing a lot of smart city thinking, not a lot of smart thinking though. What is a smart city, I would ask? And usually the answer would be a list of technologies like, you got to have the internet and cell phones and mobile devices and usually some monitoring and surveillance like traffic cameras and neighborhood security and air quality, water quality, moisture, humidity, weather. Okay. And several other items. So these were fairly basic, and they were usually off the top of their head. So I wasn't speaking to smart city consultants or anything. Just the casual person who was smart city curious. What was never included, and I'm not even kidding, what was never included in any list, anytime I asked a person this, it was a statistically invalid survey. My population was skewed significantly. It was people that were interested but not completely researched. They were not professionals. So they were not working in the smart city consulting space or anything. They had never really done any city planning. So ideally I would have had a mixture of those to show this, but the casual survey that I conducted, 100% missing people. No one ever said a smart city has people. It's subtle, but it's important. If we look at the Wikipedia article and references to 3 definitions of what a smart city is from 2011, so you have to scroll down a bit. The first mentions people explicitly. The second, kind of implicitly, it mentions quality of life. And the third, not even really implicitly. It leaves it for you to insert yourself. There's always an assumption, perhaps, that people are going to benefit anyway. And, in my statistically invalid survey, it's entirely possible that the people I was speaking to did not assume that you had to list people. They probably assumed that people were just part of the city anyway. But the reaction when I said, what about the people? They would always kind of go, oh, yeah, that's right. So it may have been a presumption that they were not making consciously. Either way, the people are often like an afterthought or a presumption. And when you assume things about people, then you may get them wrong. And they probably will. And we'll get to that in the next section. There's always an assumption, perhaps, that people are going to benefit. That's the real thing, right? Like, well, of course there's going to be people, and of course they're going to benefit. So that's really the net assumption. You can always assume people will be in a city. An abandoned city is not really a city anymore. It's, well, they call them ghost cities in some places, but that doesn't really matter so much if there are no people anymore. It depends on what you're building, I guess. The benefit to the people, though, of the smart city technologies and so on, do people get something out of this, especially if they're putting something in? So I mentioned the people, though. That's probably what's happening. Or maybe just people don't think about the people. If you have the technology in your eyes, if you are oh, look at that cool car. Did you notice there's no driver in the car? What? So it may be a self-driving car, but you're more concerned about the look of the car, not what's going on inside or the people involved, right? Just throwing these out there. It could be anything. What do you think about when you ponder smart city? Are you thinking about the impact on yourself, on people around you, or you jump right away? And this is not uncommon, I think, to jump right away to the tech, right? I have a feeling if in the 70s, if someone said, we can put up these towers in, we'll call them cells, and we can have mobile devices, like a mobile phone, that you can move between the cells and it will connect to the closest cell. And I'm sure only the Star Trek generation would have been like, well, yeah, of course. So the Toronto debacle, though, perhaps when people are left out of the loop, so to speak, you may take that as as a callback to the loop here in Vegas, the underground boring tunnel. I've never been in it. I don't really have a strong desire to be in it. I wish they were using a monorail instead of individual Tesla vehicles. But when you have an idiot designing these things, that's the way it goes. So the loop, so to speak, if you're not in the loop as the people, something like a Project Sidewalk debacle, and I don't think it's called Project Sidewalk explicitly, but Project Sidewalk, in the debacle that took place in Toronto happens when you don't think about these things. So dropping technology onto a city as though it's a bomb or leaflets for their own good, and I'm editorializing, does not always go over well. So very briefly, and if you read the Wikipedia article, there's a lot of information, but if you continue reading blog posts and newspaper or news articles in general, contemporaneous reporting and outcomes and all that, you'll get a better picture of this. Very briefly, and of course it's biased, Sidewalk Labs, which as you will find immediately, is a subsidiary of Google, so Sidewalk Labs LLC. Honestly, I have not checked to see if they are still in business, but at the time, subsidiary of Google. They won a request for proposal. The city put out the RFP. They won to be in a process to bring smart city technologies to a part of Toronto. I've never been to Toronto, so I have no real familiarity. You can read in the Wikipedia article about some of the specifics. Their efforts were not compatible with the good sense of the people living there on whom this technology would be dropped. So if I recall correctly, and I've kind of stylized this a bit, but there was the announcement that was made by an official of the city, somebody in authority, to a crowd of people, didn't get applause. It was, I think the way I've described it is in the middle of a sentence where they said, we're deploying the smart city. Somebody was like, nope. And everybody was like, yeah, nope. Like nobody was a fan of this. So not a popular notion, even though this was an RFP, a request for a proposal from the city. So the government of the city was involved and they're probably authoritative. It appears that, much like my own casual queries, the people did not show up or did not show up often enough to be considered and not angered by the efforts. So when I say show up, it means they didn't show up in the design process, the discussions, Maybe they weren't invited. Maybe they didn't know about it. Maybe they weren't interested because they didn't know, like they didn't have an inkling. So when this was dropped on them, they said, whoa, 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 what is this? No, no, no. It did not go well. The project did not end well either. So how to get started? There are a few basic principles which appear elsewhere probably. I'm sure that I didn't invent any of these, but these are on my list, so I present them from my own perspective. First of all, co-create. So that addresses the Toronto situation somewhat. This means that people, the people involved, the residents and visitors alike, probably more residents, but visitors are welcome, should be either directly involved in design stages or should be able to provide feedback that enables iteration for evolutionary improvement of features, services, and any other element they encounter in a smart city. In other words, if people end up frustrated by like, oh, they did this new smart city silliness that makes it takes twice as long to do something or whatever, that information should be available in an open way. Like, don't tuck that away in an email or something. It should be generally available so that people know, oh, okay, everybody else is seeing the same thing I'm seeing. And so that the people that might take on fixing this or undoing this can acknowledge it and then can say, we're gonna try some ideas out, and we want you to look at what we come up with and see if it makes it better, makes it worse, etc. So co-creation is a invaluable way of designing things that are intended to be used by people. They can tell you what you're doing wrong, and they will. They'll tell you when you can change it, or they'll tell you later when it's more difficult to change it, but they'll tell you. So this is the Raymond Loewy design philosophy. It's a nugget from, obviously there's more to it than this, but it's most advanced yet acceptable. I often mistakenly say minimally advanced, but it's most advanced. That's quite the opposite. Most advanced yet acceptable. So in other words, make it high tech, but not too high tech. So make it so that it doesn't scare people away, which is sometimes stated. In fact, if I can interject, I'm going to interrupt myself here. Old phones looked a lot like phones, right? If you looked at it, you'd say, oh, is that a phone? It had a big battery. If you're looking at one of the Motorola phones of old, the Bone phone, they were kind of big and whatnot, but they had a keypad and they had a little display and they had a microphone. They looked like a phone. So there was nothing alien about it. If you look at some of the cell phone designs from Nokia, Ericsson, and various others during the mid 90s, they went off the rails. They didn't really look like phones anymore, but people knew what cell phones were at that point. But when you're introducing something new to people, you don't go too crazy. And so it's sometimes the Maya principle is often stated as if you're selling something to someone, although you don't need to necessarily be selling a product. You're maybe selling the notion or selling adoption. If you want to sell something familiar, make it surprising. If you want to sell something surprising, make it familiar. So the smart city doesn't have to have flying cars initially, but it also, if it does have flying cars, it should also have normal cars so that people don't have a giant gap to overcome. They can participate in the city without it leaving them. You shouldn't have to own a cell phone. You shouldn't have to own and pay bills for a cell phone. You shouldn't have to have high-speed internet to participate in a smart city or to benefit from it. You should be able to access some of the smart city features using shared, library computers, or generally speaking, you should not make a smart city elitist from that perspective. And empower. We say enable and encourage at the foundation, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, but generally speaking, the people in and visiting, so the locals and the visitors, a smart city should feel as though they can be a part of the development of it, to make use of infrastructure or services to try new ideas, and to generally be empowered to use what's here to do something new. The smart city should be a platform, not a product. If you've ever looked at if you buy a computer, you usually are putting your software you need on it, your applications, your games, you plug in speakers, whatever you're doing. So the computer is something of a platform, and you're adding things to it to make it fit your needs so that it works the way you need it to, want it to, etc. A product, in the smartphone example, could have been the original iPhone, which didn't have any way to install applications on it. So the App Store notion came later. The initial idea was very controlled. It was a product. It was a Steve Jobs product, of course. So he didn't like anything that involved changing his ideas. Like, what? It's perfect. I designed it. I know some of the iPhone people, so yeah, that's the way it was initially. So the smart city should be a platform, not a product. The smart city should enable people, should empower them to try new ideas and to build new solutions, solve new problems that weren't conceived when the smart city became smarter, and so on. So it should be the beginning, not the end of the adventure. Obviously, the best way to start is to start. This is where our foundation, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, was to enter this arena or area. I wrote area, but I kind of meant arena as a way to bring new ideas from newcomers to a smart city in a structure that had existed in the form of Code for Vegas. So in other words, we rebooted Code for Vegas Foundation specifically with an aim at making our smart city smarter, right? So this was the genesis. So Code for Vegas had existed many years ago. It was part of an open data project with Code for America in the city of Las Vegas. We rebooted Code for Vegas Foundation as an independent charity, which it still is. And then we renamed it to Innovate for Vegas Foundation because innovation may or may not include code. So this is a much more inclusive and representative name. The virtual Vegas, I call it a capstone, like it's kind of the overarching umbrella under which our various initiatives fit. So if, some of our initiatives are the open data capture platform to continue with the open data concept, open transit, because our transit system in Southern Nevada could use any sort of help from anyone who cares. That's we're looking at U-Transit app in Montreal. You apparently don't. The My Muni and Welcome projects, of course, the vLocal project for a virtualized economy and a privacy-aware identity platform to link things together. The Smart Social, which is not a social network, but Smart Social is how can you use technology to connect people and data. So the My Muni platform is basically the human interface to this human data compute hybrid, right? So how can we make that more interesting, not just a WordPress website? There are a couple other ones, but that's the basic idea. So they all form the virtual Vegas smarter smart city. Now, note that this approach includes people first. And I should point out, while we did have an interest initially, there was this, I think there was like a fear, or we don't have an innovation culture with critical mass here. I don't want to make it sound like we have zero, but we don't have 1,000 people showing up for a hackathon. We have 12, right? And I have been to hackathons with 1,000 people that show up, and they do happen even today. So we have some runway ahead of us, luckily. So it would be nice if people that were here who had an interest would act on that interest. So we have some work to do. But this approach includes the people first. So by including the people that live here in the process of designing and building and experimenting and so on, we're really, excuse me, we're really publishing an RFP rather than publishing a request for proposal for companies. Our RFP is a request for participation, if you will, where people who live here are invited to join the conversation and the collaboration to begin with the gaps, the problems, the issues around them that they feel might be addressable. And we can do, have you ever, I've said this many times, have you ever, you walk down a street, or you're moving along through your city, pick a place, pick a time, whenever it is. Those potholes have been there forever. In East Las Vegas, a neighborhood decided to fix the potholes themselves because nobody else was. If there is a thing that is getting in the way, that is blocking, causing problems, costing money, sometimes you just have to fix it yourself. And if you enable people to do that, sometimes they will, and they might do it better than a bureaucracy, an infrastructure that's built on procurement and budgets and political favor, etc. So enabling the people who live in a place to be a part, an intimate part, in fact, sometimes a driving part of development of a smart city features, elements, and so on, adding to the platform and or building upon it, I think is an interesting way to view this. And you might know the people that are working on it, right? You don't have to do it yourself. You might have a friend or a family member or a colleague. Oh, I'm working on the open transit project. Oh, really? I ride the bus. Are you, are you fixing this stupid feature from the transit app? There are so many. Which one are you speaking of? It's generally a poor piece of software. Well, I am vision impaired, and the application is not vision impairment friendly. It's not Y-ARIA friendly or compliant. Low contrast images, small text, mysterious color codings that I cannot make sense of. Well, of course, why don't you be a part of our co-creation effort to make sure that this thing works for the people who need to use it, not so that it satisfies project requirements in Montreal. They should satisfy customer requirements in Vegas. These are the sorts of things you can do to make your smart city smarter by listening to the people that live in the city and making sure that their smarts make it into the city. So let's talk about information sharing. One of the major gaps that I've mentioned a few times on this very program is information awareness. This has, for the longest time, been a gap filled by local news. I mean, the longest time up until the last 10 years, maybe a little bit more. From the town crier of old to the local printed newspaper, maybe it was one giant sheet printed on a real printing press, but printed newspapers, local, and even there's still free papers. The Las Vegas Weekly, is it the Weekly? I believe is free. And then is there another one? These exist. So printed media, local radio stations, and then that television eventually, and radio is still around. So I didn't want to say it was like a transition. Newspapers, printed newspapers are rare, except for the free paper. I still see those frequently. So you add in television and now websites and YouTube channels. So people probably don't watch the evening news. The local evening news was probably on at like 5:30 or something. So those have kind of given way to YouTube channels, and they'll embed the videos in their website so you can visit the website and get the news instead of finding the print media and so on. Excuse me. So while the ways that information can be shared from some authoritative sources, so you would like to believe that your news agencies, your newspaper publishers, your television news stations are in some way authoritative. So as authoritative sources, they have more and more ways to reach us. The paths to us have increased and become more available, so we can check all of these things on our phone anytime, our always connected mobile device in our pockets. The amount of information appears not to have increased, though. That is, we don't necessarily get all of the details about all of the goings on because it is the gathering of information that costs money. It costs much more money to go out to roll a truck, as they used to say, for the utility companies. So to roll out to a location with a reporter and a camera, if you're doing TV, to set up for a live spot for radio, which is much more rare for field reporting. You got to pay. You got to pay people to do that, to do the work of gathering the news, interviewing, checking facts, hopefully, doing the journalism, the reporting, the interviewing, the cross-checking, the whole deal, and then creating copy and analyzing it. And maybe there's an ongoing story, so you have to see if what happened today was a part of what happened 3 weeks ago, and so on. Reporting it is free. Sharing it, posting it on our website is essentially free. You're not even paying for the printing costs of a newspaper, and you're probably not paying for. You may still have a TV station, but local news can get away with not even having a license. You don't have to have an FCC license for your TV station, and you don't have to worry about broadcasting in studios and all that stuff. So really, it's the gathering part, the reporting. I'm sorry, the journalism part, the reporting, just talking about it or writing an article or publishing it. I will say it's the easy part relatively. So what we end up with is an incomplete picture of what is happening, or what has happened, or what could happen around us at any given time, with the missing pixels in that picture filled in with social media posts. Basically, if you can imagine, well, first of all, a lot of the bandwidth of your local news channel's website will be filled with advertising below the fold, like the bottom half of their website, the sidebars of each article, and so on. It'd be all ads, native advertising, ugly advertising. It's ridiculous. So they're paying some of those bills by just throwing a bunch of advertising at you, and then that's kind of disappointing. Same on YouTube. Obviously, YouTube videos are monetized and so on. So the entire process of news reporting is really trying to keep up with the costs. So you're pelted with that. Social media, you will have people who are going to take a picture of what's happening. They're going to write a blog post. Those are older. So maybe a tweet or something similar. But people, individuals on the ground, will express an opinion about something, often in the first person. Maybe they're right there. They take a picture, they comment, they caption it, they create a reel or a TikTok video or a YouTube short. Are there more? There are probably more. So you have what is sometimes called citizen journalists, even though they don't know they're journalists. So there's content. There are ways of having people report on things, even though it's not reporting, but they're adding to the information that's available, or the data that's available about an event, about an occurrence, the happening, if you like. So the missing pixels can be filled in with social media posts, basically. So, we couldn't send somebody out to that food truck event. Oh, that's okay. There are food truck fans that go and take 1,000 pictures of all the trucks and the dishes that they were serving and so on. What about that musical event? We got you. There's videos. Each performer has 25 Instagram reels from different people, different angles. Okay, so thinking about it, you probably visit Instagram to see what is going on in Vegas, rather than visiting a local news website, of course. Or maybe you're going to consume a local news, like a YouTube channel or some other similar compilation, radio or television, sort of like, hey, what's happening this weekend, or something like that. So do you even watch TV? Does anybody watch TV? So you can try to figure out what's going on. I have found local news media does a absolute failing garbage job. Sorry, garbage is a bad word lately, but they do an awful job at doing some of the smaller, closer in, not necessarily niche, but just smaller, not quite as shiny event coverage. So a farmer's market event, they're not going to cover that because it's just a farmer's market. Who cares? But as a way of telling people that there is a farmer's market, right? Oh, there's a new farmer's market location. Well, yeah, it's been there for 6 months. But, there's a new farm, so it's only interesting if it's interesting. Murder and blowing up casinos is much more interesting in Vegas. So therefore, you're kind of left with, well, hopefully somebody did hashtag farmers market and I'll find it on Instagram. Maybe. My phone is making noises, of course. It's the world we live in. So then it becomes about discovery and collaboration, right? So as sources of news and information become more diverse, it becomes slightly more challenging to discover the current state of affairs on any topic. That is to say, if you have 10 sources of chaotic news, right? They're not professional reporters. They're just people that are posting on social media or personal content sites, or whatever it is. Could be any mixture of anything. You got to monitor all 10, or there are ways to kind of aggregate those. Maybe, if people still use RSS and whatnot. So if we only consume one of those 10 channels, we only consume Instagram Reels, and if some more current information is available on TikTok, and you're not using TikTok at all, or you're not following the right, your For You page is completely skewed towards your personal demographic, and it's not like, you might be interested in the latest coffee shop goings on in Vegas. It might be all about whatever their algorithm has decided. So you might miss it if somebody is only posting on TikTok and you are not seeing or consuming their content. Maybe you're following them, but maybe you're not. Anyway, we don't need to complicate it. So this may or may not be important, though, and it suits TikTok and Instagram just fine. If you're, you come to our website more than any other website, perfect. Replacing Instagram and TikTok in this scenario is impractical, right? People are just going to post where they're going to post. It's the way it is. So what if we could discover, and I'm not suggesting anything new right now, what if we could discover across platforms or more generally, what if we could have the information we are looking for come to us from these different sources? It happens in some ways already, either directly through keyword match services. I think you can type your name in on a Google Watch, I think it is, and they'll send you a notification if Google search engine encounters your name or your keywords, whatever you're looking for, or indirectly through algorithms. So production by street. There may be aggregation. I've not really looked, but there may be aggregation of different videos from TikTok, Instagram Shorts. They may sort of merge them together. That would be cool, wouldn't it? Like, I'm looking for the latest foodie news in Vegas. Well, here's the 4,000 content creators and their 25,000 videos posted yesterday. Oh, good. I may have missed something. So it could go either way. But in general, making use of this vast quantity of user-generated content is the technical term, if you like. The notion is not new. Banjo, if you're familiar, it used to be Banjo. I don't even know if they're still in business. I'm going to check that out real quick. Banjo was started during the Downtown Project days. Banjo. Yeah, no, it's dead. Banjo? Without the... Boy, if I could type, it'd be helpful. Banjo.com? No. Banjo.com sells banjos. Banjo. Well, no. Wow. They have been erased from time. So banjos used to be... Well, Banjo used to be a social media user-generated content aggregation platform. And if you remember Shepard Smith from Fox News, and they put in those big giant displays like behind him in the news set, there were people sitting at these sort of smart desks of some sort with giant displays. They actually called them the BADs, big displays. And they were powered by Banjo, so that made a lot of news here in Vegas. So Banjo, let me see if I can... oh yeah, so it's in the archive.org site a little bit. So yeah, Banjo, BAN.jo. The person that started it, his name was Damien. I don't remember his last name. And they made a big splash. It was very interesting because he said, probably rightfully so, there are people at concerts, at social gatherings, at news-making events that are closer to what's going on in real time. They are posting on social media, so why are we not aggregating that and making use of it and not paying them for their trouble? Oh yeah, that's the tough part, isn't it? So we want to have real time, and that's been done sort of, and it worked well enough until they discovered that Damien had a whole bunch of swastika tattoos all over him. That was a problem. So much for that idea. But if you can somehow connect the people that are creating content or that are talking about current events or that have direct connection to, maybe they've been directly impacted by some crime or they're committing some crime, that would be fun. But if you can actually connect the people in your city, your smart city becomes a function not only of the technology and the top-down thinking that you would find at a place like Toronto during the Sidewalk Labs debacle, but you might find a bottom-up, like, hey, I live here, and this is what's going on around me, and here it is. And if that can be more easily discovered, it doesn't necessarily need to be Banjo style. It doesn't need to be like cutting-edge real-time initially, but we can certainly start by saying, how do we make information more easily found? Because when you speak about Vegas internally, the greater Vegas area, there are two things that come up. One, very siloed. So people tend to stick to their locality. They stick to their side of town. If you're a Summerlin person, you hang out in Summerlin. Henderson is Henderson. The New Southwest area, because everybody has everything near them, right? There's really no compelling reason to travel across town because, my favorite restaurants and bars and spots are all right here. So there's a little bit of sequestering going on. And then we don't really have a good information sharing scheme. So I've talked about this previously. And in fact, I interviewed Mo Collins, who was the author and publisher of the study that did on the ecosystem of all of Nevada, including Southern Nevada, as a separate component of the overall. And the lack of a community calendar and effective ways to discover what's going on. And community calendar, not as in, oh, it's a WordPress site. No, I mean real consideration of how you keep track, because Vegas has a lot of stuff going on. With so many people coming through, you got trade shows, you got sporting events now, you got all manner of things, right? So there's what's going on Friday night in Vegas? Nothing. That is not true. So the two of the things: one, silos; two, and there are more things, but two, there are no tools that have been around for decades being put to good use here to enable connection across those silos or in time, right? What's going on Friday? We should know that, and we should be able to answer that and not say, well, you got to check these 25 different websites and they still might be wrong. That is not a smart city. Sorry. So news feeds, did I finish that? Yeah. News feeds become interesting when they are seeded with topical items that are of interest to you, right? Remember back in the old Facebook days, you would post here's the thing I read, and your friends were probably near you. There were some of your friends that were geographically proximal. So you'd post an article about an event going on, a farmer's market perhaps, or maybe something bad like a fire, or, oh, look, here, this happened. And then people would find that because Facebook would say, oh, your friends want to see what you post, and vice versa. So they had this simple discovery mechanism, and now they're all about showing you ads and what they want to show you and whatnot. But so the mysterious algorithm shows you items, and who knows what happens if they're real or algorithmic associations. Like, oh, why am I seeing this? I don't even know that person, right? Shared by so-and-so. Don't know who that is. And that you'll see that on LinkedIn a lot now. LinkedIn is garbage, just like any other. Anyway, but this does aid in discovery. You're coming across things that you may not have. The algorithm has decided what you might be interested in, and maybe you are, and maybe you're not. This collaboration, that is you sharing things, your real friends and algorithmic friends sharing things, is a way to do this, to discover and to cross-pollinate, if you like, or to extend your reach. Though we let a third party make those decisions for us with their own motives. Whether we benefit or not, we may be missing out. It's hard to say. But and a great example is Instagram when it comes to real-time events. If you post on Instagram, hey, this is going on tomorrow. So the problem with that is you have to check when was the post made. Because I might see that post 2 days later. Oh, this is going on tomorrow. Oh, wait, they posted it 2 days ago. So that's yesterday. Right. So Instagram is not made for calendar related events because you may or may not see a particular image. It depends on what the algorithm decides. So there you go. So you might be missing out, right? The stolen generator. So I mentioned the Instagram posts in particular, and I've mentioned food trucks, and I have mentioned this in the past. I have been a founder of 2 different owners associations for mobile vendors. I've worked on food trucks. I find it an interesting business. I would never own a food truck myself because it's super high risk. My family has been in the restaurant business, so that's another reason not to do it. But the business itself, the mechanics, the moving vendor, moving customer concept, the ability to communicate your position with your customers when you're moving around. There's a whole bunch of pieces to it that are interesting. And so so those are for another time. But so one of my friends here in Vegas, James, owns a food truck, but it's technically a food trailer called Tunu Fix. And he and his family work on it. They work it around town. They happen to be frequently at the Centennial Hospital, which is near where I live. So I walk by them frequently, stop in, say hey. And they make some very nice victuals of Guam. So if you're looking for some Guamese action, there you go. And yes, sometimes he makes Kiloquin? No, how do you say it? It's a chicken and I can't remember how you say it. You know what I'm saying. If you know, you know. It's good, but also his barbecue stuff. It's good stuff. James, very nice man. His family, very nice. I think I've met everybody at some point. As I record this, so it's the 1st of November, it's Friday. Yesterday, so Thursday, he said that it was either the morning previous or that morning. So it was either Wednesday morning or Thursday morning. he discovered that someone stole his generator. Generator is basically 100% required to have a food truck go. Generators power the refrigeration. So if you have any perishable foods and they're not refrigerated, the health department will come and find you. They'll like follow their nose. What does that smell? What is that smell of food being stored at incorrect temperatures? So you got to have your generator for anything electrical on the vehicle, and so that's a game over if you don't. So he's out of business until they replace it. Now, if you have been in or know something about the low margins of any food business, you know that an unexpected expense like this, and I don't know in any capacity whether he has insurance or enough insurance or what the deal is. So you can leave those comments yourself. Bottom line, it's an unexpected expense that could be catastrophic. It's something that you may not recover from if you're, depending on how close you are on your monthly costs and so on. So a post to Instagram will go a long way, obviously, as far as reaching his fans and his customers. That's how, and I've asked him about this specifically, he gets a ton of business through Instagram, posting pictures of his food and telling people where he's going to be. It works well enough for him. There are no extra costs, it's free. So it's all good. With Vegas seeing a rash of break-ins and burglaries of small businesses in the Arts District, for example, attacks on small business are real and can do real harm. Like most businesses are very low margin. They, depending on where they are in their history, they may be still new. Maybe they're still in that early I'm paying off debts with my paper thin margin profits and so on. So in the Arts District, these appear in the news, especially if there's a security camera on video. If you can show someone breaking a window and coming around the counter and grabbing the cash register or whatever, they will include that in the news. Oh, another break-in in the Arts District, and they'll show on a map where it is and so on. A little food truck owner doesn't get quite that attention, so probably not going to make the news. He might, but probably not. So the really small businesses like mobile vendors, they're not going to get the coverage or the mention, and arguably the odds of community support, like a fundraiser or something, go down because there's just nobody knows except for his Instagram followers. That could turn into something. But what I'm saying is broad awareness about the plight of small business, so the successes and the challenges, don't really go reported in a place like Vegas because they're just not exciting. They're real, but not exciting. If the bigger picture were more easily accessible to the populace, perhaps someone would post the Instagram link in a context that makes it easier to find, regardless of whether you're following Tunu Fix on Instagram. So, for example, it should be a part of a larger and ongoing awareness of crime committed against small business. That should be a thing that is getting specific coverage, right? Just like you have a sports section in a newspaper, you should have a small business section that covers these catastrophic happenings so people understand, like, oh, having a small business is not just, milk and honey. I don't know, I just made that up. It's profits and losses. There are as well, there are maybe customers who encounter Tunu Fix at some of their stops. I know they used to go to a place that was near where First Friday takes place, and so the customers there may not even know, they may not follow them on Instagram. Maybe they go on the usual time and place, and oh, how come there's no tuna? Where's that food truck that's usually here? And the answer might be, I don't know. So communicate, that's one of the challenges of food trucks that I find interesting, is how do you communicate with people when you're not always going to be in the same place and so on. So the plight of small business doesn't often get communicated to people, and then you're kind of left to your own devices. You got to do your own marketing and engagement and alerts and so on. So maybe the customer may, I guess I just won't come here anymore because they're not going to be here. Or on the other end, they may have been interested in participating in a fundraiser of some sort, and they wouldn't know. If the information remains in a silo like Instagram, awareness becomes a steep hill to climb. Okay. And also by way of just getting the word out, I've shared that link with you. So if it's a year from now and you visit that picture, or you visit the Instagram account for Tunu Fix and they're back in business, or hopefully it's less than a year, every once in a while you would see a food truck itself get stolen. And those would get posted more quickly because now you're talking Grand Theft Auto, right? You're talking major expense. Those would get some attention, and the truck would be found. It would be stripped. They'd find it the next morning, or several hours later, side street, totally stripped down. And that has put food trucks out of business. So it can be a real catastrophic loss, really. So, yeah. So my own ideas and yours. And we're coming to the end. I have mentioned the information sharing startup I am working on. Obviously, some of this figures in there prominently. That's why I've been talking about it. There will probably be a reflexive observation. So you're probably thinking, or when you first visit, when we get the first kind of thing up and running, what I'm aiming for is either another local news site or maybe some sort of what's going on in Vegas site, or maybe there's some variation on an existing theme that you're aware of, right? Like, oh, it's another version of Eater, or it's another version of, what is it? Vegas.com. There's casino.org, is it? Where Vital Vegas publishes. There's the DTLV Instagram account. So like there's all these different, and those are just scratching the surface. So there are a variety of ways that you can try to figure out what's happening here. There are local news websites, the different TV channels, Review Journal, Las Vegas Sun, Las Vegas Weekly. There are business journals. They got there's a plethora, if I can use a vocabulary word from Terry Fields, my sophomore English teacher. So there's no shortage of destinations where you might try to find information, but you will often not find it. So where you might initially say, oh, it's just another news website. Well, that's maybe something surprising, even though it seems familiar. Does that sound familiar or surprising? So starting out as a variation on an existing theme is the familiarity. Oh, and you would get this in some pitches. Oh, it's like Uber for roller skates. Like, what does that even mean? Are you going to come and pick me up on roller skate? What is that? What is that? But you start out with a familiar premise, and then you introduce your surprise. So when it comes to tools and platforms and whatnot, you can show, don't tell. In the example of the stolen generator, this is a crime. It is a small business. It is foodies. It is mobile vending. There are a few different contexts that might not be captured in hashtags, right? I mean, you can put food truck and foodie and whatever. You can put these hashtags on there, but outside of Instagram, what is the value of these different hashtags? Which of these would make the news? This piece of information relevant and useful in those contexts would vary, right? So different ways of covering or talking about or aggregating. So if you're doing, so for example, if you could aggregate food truck schedules and locations and whatnot, but also the vendors, you can say, oh, Friday at that location, Tunu Fix is canceled. Oh, what happened? Canceled due to equipment theft. What? Click on that. Oh, okay, let me find out more about this vendor. Oh, we have to shut down our business until we can replace this generator, so until further notice. What? That sucks. Hey, is there some way I can help? I would like to support one of my favorite food trucks. What other kinds of food do they serve for example? So the interconnectedness of all things and whatnot, but you may find this information in a variety of ways. If you're not following on Instagram, you may never know anything about this. And let's face it, the odds are you don't know about it. And that's true of most things, right? Most small things. So the idea is to begin this experiment to see what happens. Having a platform to build experiments upon is where you start. Starts with starting, right? As an open platform, which is the intent, leaning into open data, so making use of the open data that's already available in various places online here in Vegas, hosted on ArcGIS if you're curious, and then adding more data to these open data sets or making use of open data in general, giving and receiving, and enabling and encouraging ideation, innovation, and implementation, which is our purpose statement from the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. Enable and encourage, don't let. Enable and encourage. Oh, this lets you do a thing. No, you're encouraged to do the thing. We are hoping to include novel ideas and familiar surprises from others, whether they are locals in Vegas or locals somewhere else. One of the issues in Toronto, I can say with some certainty, was a lack of co-creation, a lack of empowerment of the people in the city, so that it was being done to them, not for them. And you'll see references to like some questionable handling of, why are you tracking me as I move anywhere? And then you know what I'm purchasing and so on. And I will say the vLocal project, our initiative at Innovator Vegas, which is intended to be a virtual economy and personal identity. Sorry, what is it? A privacy aware personal identity platform. So you should be able to participate in our economy or be essentially a virtual local, but not have to give away a blood sample and your date of birth and social security number. At the time that we came up with this, there was this notion floating around Vegas that they were going to introduce a blockchain, Bitcoin oriented loyalty program so that when you made any purchases downtown, they would connect that to your personal identity. Like, oh no, but you get loyalty points. Like, yeah, but then you're going to know who's buying what, and you know where they live, and you know where they're doing business and where they're walking and so on. There's a whole bunch of stuff in downtown Vegas that's a little dodgy, if you ask me, a little Toronto-y. So if you enable the people that are going to be a part of this to be a part of it and to be designing ideas to be a part of it, and you include them in the design and the co-creation, whether or not they're doing, you could be contributing from a technical standpoint or from a human interface and human experience standpoint. So you're maybe not a coder, but you do have an aesthetic awareness that you can include in the, like, wow, why is this so, programmer designed it. Okay. There are many ways that people who are a part of a thing, maybe they live in a city, can be a part of making it a smart city rather than handing it off to a company like the transit app company in Montreal that really doesn't care about you and whether you can read their app to get on the bus. True story. Spoke to a bus rider, frequent bus rider who it can see, but it cannot read his phone. I said, oh, the transit app doesn't work? He's like, the text is too small, the colors, and so it's just a mess. Why would you design a mobile application for people who can't see so well if they're going to be riding the bus? Like, why even think about that? Why would they be one of your users, right? Bus riders that don't have perfect vision. Anyway, it's this sort of short-sightedness that leads to the Project Sidewalk debacle, which is a really bad example, but let's hope we don't run into that. But it's an example that's always possible when you don't participate or enable participation. Note, I did not say let people participate. Enable and encourage participation, proactive participation, or feedback at any point in the process, because if you're going to deploy things to make your smart city smarter, the people you're doing it for should have some response. And they will, but you should be able to hear it. And then version 2 comes along and then say, oh, you fixed all my problems, but you brought in some new ones. Here they are. And the world continues to turn. And that is today's episode of the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program. The temperature has, according to my smart device here, has not changed much. So 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Vegas, 65 degrees. Look at that. Autumn is upon us at long last. That is where I'm going to leave you. Don't forget to check out buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. And keep an eye out for continuing developments. I've mentioned this in other programs, and it's hard to keep track of when and where, but some of the website stuff and some other things, there's just a variety of things that are approaching the top of the to-do list at long last. So many things are happening, and hopefully you're a part of them. Take care.